of all the events at the Hesston Steam Museum, the biggest one I hadn't been to yet was, of course, the Candy Cane Express in December. And this was for a variety of reasons, namely just that it was really cold, and also that the Steam and Power Show had more trains, so I never really went to this event on previous years. However, this year, 2025, I was determined to change that. I was going to go on December 13th, but it was so cold that they canceled the event, which I'm glad they did because I do not want to stand out in the freezing cold, sorry. So they rescheduled the event for December 20th, which was thankfully a lot less cold. Unfortunately, that meant that there was no snow on the ground, but I was still going to go to the event because it's Heston's, it's trends. I'm going to go to it. On December 20th, we arrived there relatively early in the morning, just after the event started, and once we arrived, number 1 was already sitting at the platform, although the big train was nowhere to be seen. After not very long, number 1 departed with a quite awesome smoke show for such a small engine. After that, with no other moving trains for a while, we headed over towards the locomotive shops, first to see the decorated Santa's caboose, and then to actually go into the shops. Hesston shops haven't been open to the public for a long time, and this was the first time I recalled they were open to the public. I have gone in them before, but that was simply because I didn't know that they were closed. So, sorry Hestons if I annoyed your locomotive shop people. Anyways, this time it was open and you could go in there without getting in trouble. So we did. And they had model railways, which I thought was cool. There was this pretty cool one, and then this less cool, more basic layout, but it was actually running, with a Lionel Hudson. In addition to the model railways, the locomotives normally stored in the shop were also on display, and were decked out with lights for the Christmas season. Right in front of the model shops was my favorite locomotive at Heston's, Duchess Righteous Bon, I probably butchered that, 993361, an 080 that came from East Germany. After East Germany retired steam very late in the 1970s, this thing was brought to Heston's. How did it get here? I really don't know. How did the Heston's guys find out about it and buy it? I don't know. But I'm glad it's here because it's really cool. Right beside it was a terrifying Grinch inflatable and the rusting remains of Porter 260 number 17, which was a sister engine of number 2 that they butchered for parts. And also in front of that German engine is this CB&Q switcher, number 999. Of course, CB&Q never had narrow gauge, so it's not an authentic CB&Q engine, but it's really cool that they painted it in this amazing livery. And the main star of the show here in the shops was, of course, the Shay, which was fully decked out in lights. Man, I wish the running trains were like this. Either way, it still looked really cool, especially in the sort of dark lighting inside the shops. That reef around the smoke box is definitely the best part. However, that wasn't all the engines to see in this shop complex, because just outside were the 2 former Flying Dutchman Railroad Plymouth diesels. This one has since been repainted into this red livery with yellow bands, but number 15 here retains its original gray livery. Then it was back to the depot to shoot more moving trains. Number 2 had already pulled in while we were in the shops, so number 1 was the first one I filmed from this nice low angle. After that, I climbed the big hill near where the locomotives would depart to wait for them to leave. It was a long and pretty boring wait with not much to do, and the one thing that did keep me entertained was the Wabash unit, which is now decorated with a wreath poking out from behind the trees. After that, I still waited for the two steam trains to depart, and I waited for so long that I realized that I had gotten this hill shot of these two twice before. So I decided to move to the other spot you can shoot steam at Hesston's, which is this large cutting over by the 14-inch gauge locomotive shops, which has all three gauges running by. And I'm very glad I did, because the shots here always turn out awesome since the trains are actually moving and not starting or stopping. And it wasn't very long after I got here that number one steam filled the air, its whistle sounded, and it passed me at the cutting, giving me another awesome shot of it. I got a shot very similar to this one during the Steam and Power show, but I think this one is just slightly better. The pan is just a little smoother. I wanted to catch number two once again at the other spot on the other side of Hesston's. However, I had to wait a very long time for it to go around the entire loop before it would reach that spot. So I had time to stick around here at the cutting to wait for number one to depart. And oh boy, I'm glad I did, because this is by far the smoothest shot I've ever got at Hesston's. I absolutely love this one. Number one was the only main steam engine I hadn't filmed at this cutting yet, and I'm very glad I stuck around for it because, oh, it's so good. After that, to get another shot of number two, I headed over to the S-curve on the complete opposite side of Hesston's by the hobby gauge locomotive shops. And while I was waiting, I suddenly heard horns, and the Seaboard Airline GP9 in hobby gauge suddenly appeared. This engine's been sitting at Hesston's for a long time, and I've gotten plenty of static photos of it, but I've never seen it move. So that was very exciting and instantly became top priority. However, before I could film more of that engine, it had to make a full loop. And just as it was leaving, number two completed its loop and headed by me. I've actually gotten the shot before, but now with no sun out, the shadows from the trees didn't ruin it like last time. After that, I would have headed back to the station to get another shot of number two pulling in. However, I wanted to stay here for another shot of that Seaboard GP9, and so I had to settle from filming it far away, going past the Lionel sign. Just like number 2, I had to wait a very long time for the Seaboard unit to finish its loop, and so I decided to take a look at the hobby gauge locomotive shops in the meantime. Got to see some rolling stock, and looking farther in, you can see the incredibly inaccurate Dash 98102 and this Union Pacific SD45, which I didn't even know Heston's had. And after even more mindless waiting, the Seaboard Jeep suddenly appeared from behind the forest. I really like this engine, which is why I wanted a good shot of it. The Seaboard livery just looks so good on high hoods, even at this tiny scale. And of course, as soon as I finished with that shot, I ran to the Hobby Gauge Depot to grab another shot of the engine. Oh, and number 1 too, I guess. And then I headed back to the main depot, snapping this picture of the Mona F unit and hobby gauge along the way. And of course, once I got there, I had to wait even longer for number 1 and number 2 to depart again. We were already running late to the other thing we were supposed to do on this day, but I still wanted one more departure, so I was in extreme stress and agony waiting for these two to depart. However, after way too long of sitting here with the trains fully loaded and still not leaving, number 1 finally left. After that, I was back to waiting for number 2 to leave. However, before it could, the Seaboard Jeep left again, and I tried to get another shot before number 2 jump-scared me, and I quickly zoomed out to reveal the greatest smoke show I have ever seen from any steam engine I've ever filmed. This was amazing. And with all that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to catch those units while you can, especially the steam coughing ones, and I will see you in the next video.